is that it does not know Him either. Now, as we look at that, I want you to really focus on that last part. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. You know, we can put it this way. What is the Christian life? The Christian life is to know the Lord and to make Him known. Let me say that again. The Christian life is to know the Lord and to make Him known. Matter of fact, you will know Him as you are making Him known. If you and I have no desire in our heart for people to know about the Lord from our life, from what we are doing, from our influence, from the way we live, then you and I really don't know. You see, to know Him means that we want to make Him known. But I want you to know that because of who God is, the world has rejected Him. When you and I think about the cross of Jesus Christ, you and I rightfully should look and say, that's the love of God towards us. That even while we were yet sinners, God sent His own Son to come and take our place and make payment for all of our sins, past, present, future. And then when He cried out, Father, forgive them, He was talking about us. And when He said, it is finished, He was talking about us. So that when we look at the cross, we see the forgiveness of God, the grace of God, the love of God. But when you look at the cross, you should also see something else. You should see that the world has rejected Jesus. The world has rejected God. What did the world want to do with the most loving, most holy, most incredible person that ever lived? They crucified Him. And if they were willing to crucify Him and reject Him and reject His words, how do you think they're going to respond to you when you say you follow Him? And so the reality is, when we look at this world, and we look at our lives as a Christian, there's a huge part of our lives that are going to be filled with rejection. There's a huge part of our world, of our life that's going to be filled with looking and saying, I'm just an outcast, I'm a stranger, I'm a person that the world really does not understand and really doesn't want to participate with and really doesn't want anything to do with. And it's hard when you're not prepared to be able to say, you know what? If I have God, then I have everything that I need. If I have the Lord, if I know Him, then I really have what life is all about. Whether the world refuses me or not, I have Him. Well, the reason that is so important, and the only way it can be done, is if you and I can honestly say that we know the Lord. That we know Him. What does it mean to know the Lord? Well, the very first thing of what it means to know the Lord is that we come under His authority. You know, I don't know about you. I look at this world, and I think it's crazy. I mean, I watch some of the things going on, and I go, we've lost logic. We've lost common sense. We've lost we're not even talking about what the Bible says. I mean, we live in a world where a baby is no longer considered human in value. And a person can kill a child, and it's legally protected. I mean, I look at that and I go, you got to be kidding. And when you speak out, and you say, you know what? Killing any innocent person is wrong. And they look at you as though you're the crazy one. Or we live in a world where you realize, listen, people are only born either a girl or a boy. It's not hard. Your DNA tells you. Your chromosomes tell you. Your physical makeup tells you what you are. And we live in a world that they look at you and you go, listen, there's only two genders. And they look at you like you're the crazy one. And they go, no, there's actually over 40. And you go, I'm sorry. You may say there's over 40, but you need to realize you're the crazy one. You're the one that doesn't see reality as it really is. And then we look at people and say, well, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're happy. Really? I would have robbed a bank 10 years ago. That would make me real happy to have lots of money. But there's a reason I don't do it. Why? Because it's wrong. There are people who say there's no truth. And I'm like, is that a truth? You know, people will say there's no absolutes. And as I look at all that, I go, what's happening? here's what's happening. And I want you to be aware of this. They've not gone crazy. They just simply have rejected God. When you reject God, that's the path you get on. When you reject God, that's the path you're on. It leads you, you think you're making much of yourself. You think you're being successful. You think you're gaining the world. And the reality is, you're losing your soul. You know, I was looking, and when I grew up, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, which is becoming further and further away. and you may say, well, yeah, Lauren, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, everything. Listen, when we grew up, even though the church really wasn't listened to, at least it was acknowledged. At least there was a time where when a preacher would make a statement that people would listen. Now they would, disagree, wouldn't listen, do it, but at least they would listen to it. And now I look at our world, and if you try to make any biblical statements, you are an outcast. And I thought about that. I said, what's happened? Where is the morality? Who's the one that's speaking to this generation, to this world, telling them what is right and wrong? That used to be the church. That used to be preachers. They used to stand up and tell. There was a statement that I grew up with, is that the church is the conscience of the community. And if the church doesn't stand up and speak, then what's going to happen to the community? Well, I want you to understand something, my friends. That day's gone. That day's gone. When the world looks for morality, they're not looking to the church. Matter of fact, they don't want to hear the church. What they want to hear is from our government schools. That's what they want to hear from. They want to hear from the LGBT, Z, ABCD, and all the other letters they go into their list of qualifications. That's who's determining right and wrong. The socialists in America. Those that have rejected God. They're the ones in control of the morality discussion in our country. You may say, well, what about the church? Well, I want you to realize something. The church is, for the most part, following right and line. Because I want you to know something. The church is not the conscience of the community. Now let me say that again. The church is not the conscience of the community. You know what the conscience of the community is, truly is? God's Word. This is the conscience of the community. It should be the conscience of our home. Should be the conscience of our churches. Should be the conscience of our jobs. This book, under the authority of the Holy Spirit who wrote it for men, is our conscience on what we are to do in every circumstance. And the reason we are losing that is because we have substituted everything else for the Word of God. We have substituted it for the voice of God. I want you to know that the reason we've done that is we have rejected His authority. I remember being a teenager, and the scariest thing, my parents, they feared the day that I would listen to my friends more than I listened to them. And I got to tell you, being a parent, I get kind of scared. I try to invest in my kids because I want them to listen to my voice and not the voice of their friends. Because I know what their friends are going to tell them to do as they get older. I know what the society is going to tell them. And the question is, which voice are they going to listen to? Which voice are they going to follow? You know, when I went out to college, I'm going to tell you, I went to a Christian university. And I'm going to tell you something. I almost lost my desire for God's Word at a Christian university. I was almost taught it out of me by Christian professors that I had. And it wasn't until I realized it didn't matter what Professor so-and-so said. And matter of fact, it really didn't matter what D. Burchfiel had to say. What it mattered is, what did God have to say? That's right. And I'm going to tell you, I've lived enough now that I have realized that when I try to do things D's way, it normally messes up. It normally goes the wrong way. Normally I think, man, I'm on the right path, I'm moving, everything's going great, and all of a sudden when the wheels get thrown out from underneath me, one choice, and I call on God. And you know what God reminds me of? He goes, why weren't you following me? Why weren't you following me? Listen, there's not that many people that are going to follow after God. Let me tell you this. There's no traffic in following God. Okay, there's no traffic. You don't have to worry about traffic when you're trying to follow God. But the reality is when you try and follow the world, there's a lot. And sometimes you're going to say, well, all the world says this. And that's true. And you're going to stand and say, but God says this instead. Amen. You see, the reality is, why does the world not receive you? Because they didn't receive the Lord. Amen. And if you're going to follow Him, you need to realize there's going to be a rejection. Sometimes that rejection is in your home. Sometimes you're the only believer in your house. I can't tell you how many of my childhood friends grew up where both parents were unbelievers and they were the only believer. And they had to try to live out Christ in that midst. I can't tell you how many wives I knew that they were the only believer in their home. They had their spouse, they had their kids, but they were the only believer. And even at home, they were an outcast. And I know husbands that they were the only believer in their home. And their wife and their children, they didn't want anything to do with the Lord. And they were the stranger in their own home. And it was lonely, and it was hard, and it was a rejection. And the question becomes, well, when you are rejected, what are you to do? You know what you're to do? You're to simply surrender on a cross that they have made for you. And say, I am willing to lay down my life so that you may see the love, so that you may see the mercy, so that you may see God's plan for you. And when they are driving the nails in, the family members that you are willing to die for, as they are the ones driving the nails. And it always is. The people you love, the people you care about, the people that you want to make a difference in their life, they reject you. Yes, they do. That's true. But why do they reject you? You may take it personal. It's not personal. It's because they've rejected God. It's because they've rejected God. They've rejected the God in you. And because of that, they've rejected you. But what do you do in that rejection? Do you simply run? Do you simply hide? Do you simply say, well, I'm going to let them go because I don't care about them anymore? What do? You climb up on the cross that they have built for you. And you say, I'm willing to give up my life. Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. Father, forgive them. Lord, use me in their life. See, here's the thing. When I came to Christ and you came to Christ, do you know your life is secure? Do you know your eternity and your destiny is done? You're going to be with the Lord for eternity. So what is this life about? What is this life about? This life is about living under the authority of God so that everyone can see that God is a God worth knowing. And that I may live out my life the way that Christ lives in me. And my friends, that's going to be a life of rejection. It's going to be a life of hurt. It's going to be a life of pain. But it will be a life that will make a difference. I talk about the home. Listen, it can be at work. You ever felt rejected at work? I remember I was doing bivocational ministry. I was doing a church at a truck stop, and then I was working for Home Depot. I started out in their call center and continued to get promoted and became their trainer. And it was amazing when I went there. My mentor, and you'll get to hear him, he's coming for our first men's breakfast August 3rd. They shared with me, he said, D, I want you to know what it's like working in the world. You haven't been in the world for quite a while. And I said, okay, what do I need? What's the number one piece of advice you can give me in having a secular job? And he said, remember when they're patting you on the back, they're looking for a soft spot to stick the knife. And I thought, man, that is vicious, right? I mean, but I want you to know, he was absolutely right. And as I went in there, I said, God, here's the truth. I don't know what they're going to try to do to me. I don't know what they're going to do at me. against the world. So God, what do you want me to do? And I'll never forget, he said, D, why do I have you here? Why, God? Because I want you to make a difference. I'll provide you a patient, no matter where I lead you to. But D, the reason I have you here is because I want to use you to make a difference in their lives. Well, God, what does that mean? That means, D, when it gets hard, you need to share with them where your strength comes from. You know what, D, when things go wrong, you need to share with them why you still have hope. D, when everybody else is frustrated at the rule change, you need to simply just work hard and share with people you're trusting God for the results. I'll never forget, they gave us a requirement at that job. Well, when I first started there, your requirement was that you had to be on the phone 4 hours a day, at least 4 hours a day, and you had to make 50 calls. Well, I'll never forget, they came in and they changed it to 5 hours and 100 calls a day. And oh my gosh, people were just complaining and complaining and complaining. And I realized that when people complained, they didn't work as hard. I don't know if you ever do that. That once you go negative in something, you no longer give your best. And so I realized it. I said, God, everybody was like, we don't know how we're going to do it. And I told God, I said, I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I remember what God said to me. He said, D, I don't want you to go and complain. I want you to be thankful for what the job I've given you. I said, okay, God, I'll be thankful. And he said, and I want you to just simply start to work. Don't waste time. Just start working and allow the results to be mine. I said, okay, God. And you know what? Every day I had over 5 hours and over 100 phone calls every day. And one of the reasons I got promoted was because I was meeting all the demands. And I remember people came up to me, they said, how are you able to accomplish what you're accomplishing? I said, oh, that's a great question. It's the Lord. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I have trusted God with the results of my work. I'm here for Him. Well, they said, we want you to train people. I said, well, what do you want me to train them? They said, we want you to make people exactly like you. And I said, well, I can't make anybody that good looking. But I'll do my best, right? And so every class I had, my very first 30 minutes with them, I would share with them. I said, you know what? I want you to know I am excited to get to train you guys. I'm excited to be able to help you do extremely well here. But I want you to know why I got to be your trainer. I used to be on the floor just like you're going to be. And I got promoted very quickly. And when they promoted me trainer, I asked them, I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, we want you to make other employees just like you. And I said, I turned to my class, I said, the only way for that to happen is for you to know my secret of how I was so successful here that I have been promoted twice in less than a year. And they said, they leaned in. I said, here's my secret. God. And you kind of see them go, what? And I turned to him. I said, listen, I trusted God, and I have found He's faithful. And if you want to be the very best employee you can be, I want to encourage you to trust in the Lord as I have. I want you to trust in Jesus as I have. That's how I started every class. And I never had any of the bosses, anything come up. But if they had come up and said, D, why are you doing this? I would have told them, because you told me to. You told me to make people just like me. And I knew there could come a day where they'd say, D, you can no longer share that. And guess what? I would still share it. And I would tell them, I said, listen, I appreciate that. You may want to find it. Because as long as I'm a trainer, I'm going to share with them my secret of success. And this has been my secret. Trusting in the Lord. Trusting in Him. But I want you to realize, the reason I share that story is, why did I have that job? It wasn't for the income. We like the income. But you can get income anywhere. Right? There's a lot of things we can do to get income. But when you are seeking the Lord and He leads you to a place, He leads you to that place, not because of the money. He leads you to that place because of the ministry. And when you were there, be ready to be an outcast. I was. It was interesting. I'd walk on the floor and I'd hear somebody cussing. They turn to me and they go, oh, dear, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Now I'm like, yeah, you better watch your mouth, kid. No. As I looked at that, I thought, man, I'm set apart. I am different. Why is that? Because of my relationship with God. But I wanted them to understand it wasn't about me. It was about Him. And if people are going to see it in my life, whether it's in my home, whether it's my job, how about church? You know, I told you that statement. When people pat you on the back, be careful because they can be looking for a soft spot to stick the knife. Listen, I found that to be true in church too. Matter of fact, I found that there's more knives at church than there are in the world. And you know why? Because normally there's as many lost people in the church as there is in the world. Just because you come to church doesn't mean you're saved. Right? Just because you come to church doesn't mean you know God. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you the best place to come to when you don't know God and you're not saved is the church. But as the church leaders, we've got to realize what we're here for. We're here to try to show and invite people to know God and to make Him known. Listen, I don't care about titles. I don't care about numbers. What I care about is seeing people come to know the Lord. I've had to stand against, in the midst of a church and say, this is where I stand. And I invite you to stand with me. And there's been times where we've stood alone. I mean, I'll never forget, we were at one church and we were early on in our ministry. And it's one of the hardest places we've ever been in ministry. And I remember we were talking about how we were going to really impact people. And I remember I had a deacon, he told me, he said, D, he raised his hand. I said, yes. This was a Sunday night. And I said, yes. He goes, people are upset with you. And I said, well, that's not the first time. I'm married. So what's the issue? He said, well, people don't like the way you preach. And I said, well, okay, why are they mad about my preaching? He said, well, you keep telling them to be in the will of God. They have to obey the Word of God. And we just don't agree with them. And I realized at that point that I was going to be separate from this church. Even though I was to love them and to minister to them, I was going to be a rejected pastor. I'm going to tell you, it still shocks me to have people like me. It does. I mean, you know, to have all of you come and be here, we're reaching people, we're on team together. You can't imagine how many times I go to God, it amazes me that you have people that are around me that actually love me. And the reason I say that is because I've been in so many places where when you took a stand for God's Word, you took it by yourself. We were in another place where we were going to impact the community by bringing some churches together that were going to work together to do 40 days of purpose. I'll never forget this. And we were going to meet in the school gym, so that way, instead of meeting in our church building, we would be at the school gym. So that's the school gym. School auditorium had 1,000 seats. Our church only had 200 seats, and they were full most of the time. And I thought, man, another 800 seats that we could reach over these 40 days of purpose. It's going to be an incredible time. And I had another deacon that came to me. He said, we don't want to do that. And I said, well, why don't we want to do that? He goes, well, we can only worship in our building. And I thought to myself, I said, a building has become an idol. And I said, we have an opportunity to reach 800 more people than what we currently can over the next 6 weeks. And the response was, we don't care. We don't care. And I thought to myself, I said, well, up your nose is kind of my first thought, right? I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But he wasn't. And it's very easy to look and say, well, they're rejecting me. They're not. They're rejecting the Lord. They're rejecting the Lord that is in you. And at that point, because see, here's what happens. If we take it personal, then all of a sudden we want to lash back. Right? You reject me, guess what, buddy? I'm going to reject you. You hurt me, guess what? I'm going to hurt you back. You do something to me. You don't do what God wants you to do, well, then I won't do it either. Right? I'll mouth you, I'll gossip you, I'll stab you in the back if you're going to stab me in the back. But if we realize the rejection isn't because of us, the rejection is because they rejected the Lord, then I have to respond the way He wants me to. I have to go and say, God, they're not just rejecting me, they're rejecting you. Why is that? What do I need to do? Love them. Reach out to them. Show them truth. Show them what it really is about. Now, sometimes we have to take a hard stand. Sometimes we have to simply say, here's the line in the sand, and I'm not crossing it, and you're not either. Sometimes that happens. And then other times you look and you go, man, I have to reach out to them and try to reconcile with them. What do you want me to do? But don't take it personal. Right? If they're rejecting you because of your righteousness, because you're doing what is right. It is sad that sometimes you have to stand alone with people, but you'll never stand alone. He will always be on your side. Amen. And that's enough. That really is enough. I'll close with this. We were at a church, and some of you were there with us. And we were getting ready to, God was going to allow us to connect with another church. And we had prayed about, God, is this what you want to have happen? And we felt like it really was. And we had some people that opposed it. And I remember thinking, and matter of fact, they didn't just oppose it. They got nasty about it. You know, I remember one of the meetings that we had, and Robbie can remember this and smile and laugh about it. I even got called Satan. You know, I'm like, man, how did it just get nasty? I mean, you know, and so my first thought was, well, you call the pastor Satan. The pastor gets to throw you out of church. You know, sorry, you can go down the street and find you some other pastor to call names to you. Not going to be me. And I said, God, isn't that a good idea? And God said, no. And I said, but I want to throw the person out for the way they treated me. And he goes, well, I'm not going to let you do it. And I said, well, why aren't you going to let me do it? He goes, because I need him. I said, you need him? Why in the world do you need him? He said, well, to accomplish what I'm going to do. And I need you to do everything within your power as I lead you to hold on to him and to love him. And I'm like, well, I don't think he just called me Satan. I mean, I think I should be entitled to let him have peace of my mind. You guys are like, you can't handle giving him peace of your mind. You need it all, do you? Well, I'm going to tell you, a month and a half, he bought everything we were doing. Everything. And I just thought, God, surely now you want me to get rid of him because he's doing this. No. I said, okay, next time I'm doing this. I'm like, God, now you want me. No. What are you supposed to do? Okay, and I would try everything I could to reach out and to be merciful towards him. And I remember the meeting came. Sunday came. And again, that we were going to take a vote. And he stood up and he was ugly in front of everyone. And I realized, God said, now it's done. I said, what's done? He said, now everybody has seen how ugly he has been. And they're not going to vote on his side. They're going to follow you. Because you tried to reach out and love him. And as I looked at that, I said, man, we took the vote. You know what happened? It passed. It passed. Huh? It was. I tell you what, that was the scariest thing. God, you know, God has a way of overcoming all of our doubts, right? One of the things that happened, since we were going to combine, the question was, according to the bylaws of that church, because there was no bylaws officially on combining with another church. So one bylaw said you needed a 50% chance, or 50% vote, or majority, and then another bylaw that could have applied said 75%. Well, as a pastor, I said we're going to go by the 50% bylaw because I thought that it's easier to get 50 than 75. Well, we ended up with 76. That was 76%. And so I just laughed when they came back and they said 76%. I said, God, you had it both ways. You know, either way it was going to happen. And as I looked at that, I said, man, are they rejecting me? No. Was that guy rejecting me? No. You know what he was rejecting? God. He's rejecting God. I want you to understand this. Because the only way you're going to be able to respond with loving that person when they're crucifying you is to realize they've already crucified Jesus. And the reality for you and I is to challenge ourselves that we don't get in the way of God either. Sometimes as believers we get in the way of God. You ever say, well, they're not going to do it if they're not going to do it my way? Mm-hmm. Now, we don't really say that. We say it this way. We just want them to do what's best, and what's best is what I'm thinking. Right? And if they're not doing it the way I think they should do it, then obviously they're wrong. Right? That's the same thing as saying they need to do it my way. And the reality is, guys, that we can get in the way of God. Let me ask you something. You don't have to raise your hands, but I just want you to think about this. How many times have you gotten in the way of God? Because you wanted your way instead of His way. You know what we're to do when that happens? We're to go to the person we rejected, and we're to repent to them. And we're to repent to God. And say, God, I am so sorry for getting in your way. You may say this morning, Dee, I know what it's like to be rejected because I stood for the Lord. I know what it's like to hurt because I took a stand for what was right. I know what it's like to be alone in my home. I know what it's like to be alone at work. I know what it's like to be alone at church. But God, I need to lay it before you because they're not really rejecting me. They're rejecting you. And I need to reach out to them. I need to be willing to get on that cross that they're building for me. I need to be willing to take the nails. I need to be willing to stand in the gap so that way they can see that there's someone willing to say, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Let me realize, Lord, this life is about two things: knowing you and making you known. That's it. Knowing you and making you known. You know, last Sunday, we went visiting, and we got to meet some of our neighbors, and we got some amazing people that live around us. And Rebecca's team, it was Rebecca and Jennifer and Michael. They had the opportunity to get to lead a person to the Lord as they were out visiting last Sunday night. It was awesome. And as I think, and we're not going tonight, but the next 2 weeks on Sunday night, we're going to be going visiting. What's the purpose of our life? To know the Lord and to make Him known. The world rejects us. They will reject you. That's okay. It's okay for you to be a stranger in this world. Right? Some of you may be more stranger than others. But when they reject you, they're simply rejecting the Lord. I want to ask you to bow your heads. Some of you, as you sit here, you go,